This is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. I'm recording this episode on April 28th, 2025. And that makes this the sixth anniversary of when Jason Goodman and I returned to the United States together from Thailand. So 6 years ago, Jason came to Thailand. We spent about 5 or 6 days together in Koh Samui, the same place where they're filming White Lotus, the HBO show, Season 3, at the Koh Samui Four Seasons Resort. And Jason and I spent 5-6 days together there. And then on this day, on April 28th of 2020, Jason and I flew back to the United States together.
We're here, Koh Samui, Thailand.
Indeed. Welcome, Jason. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Welcome to Thailand.
It's good to meet you, man. After all this time you've been covering Vegas, finally your secret location is revealed. Well, of course, by the time people see this, we'll be gone.
That's right.
From the secret location.
That's right.
But, I mean, it was a real mystery for a while. Who you were, where you were, why you were doing all this stuff.
Exactly. And he helped me keep that secret for about 2 years. So for 2 years, I was in the United States and carrying on as if I was still in Thailand. And it was on this day that we left Koh Samui, Thailand. In fact, here's the ticket receipt for Jason. And we flew from Koh Samui to Bangkok that morning. And then I think we flew from Bangkok to, I forget if we went to Narita and then Los Angeles or wherever, but it was a couple hops. But this was the day that we returned to the United States, and that was 6 years ago today. The other thing that happened was 5 years ago today, coincidentally, I spoke to Laura Ingram on Skype, and we spoke about something that I discovered hours earlier. So I couldn't wait to share these findings with Laura. And I'm going to share that with the audience here. The other thing that we're going to talk about in the show, besides this anniversary thing and the thing that I spoke about with Laura, is something that came up last week, and I wanted to give it a little time. I wanted to let it sink in. I wanted to absorb it a little bit. I wanted to see what some of the comments were. And that's this. This is the White House's new webpage talking about the COVID origins. And this is at whitehouse.gov/lab leak true origins of COVID-19. And so this is kind of wild. So this is the government telling you what they've got going on. So this is pretty interesting. We've got the president, the image of the president here, the true origins of COVID-19. So is the supposition that the White House is now clearing up any misconceptions about the origins of COVID? And it goes into this whole story. So we're going to take a closer look at this together. I might be doing this with my patrons, and that probably makes sense. So I'll be walking through this with my patrons in the patron-only portion of the show. But let's go take a look at what was happening 5 years ago today. So 5 years ago today exactly, April 28th of 2020, I sent a message to Laura Ingraham. We had been introduced, I guess, 10 days earlier or something, 10, 12 days earlier. And when we were first introduced, we were talking about influenza and the numbers for influenza and how many people were dying from influenza, and the fact that influenza appeared to be a much bigger issue than this COVID-19 thing. And the reason I say that is only because 4,000 people were dying a week of influenza, P&I, pneumonia and influenza, and COVID wasn't anywhere near those numbers at the time that she and I were talking. The other thing I was pointing out to Laura was that Hong Kong and Shanghai didn't have 10 dead. Beijing didn't have 10 dead. No one was dead in Vietnam. And Vietnam's important because it neighbors China. They share a border. And Vietnam is 100 million people, which is more than any country in Western Europe. So Vietnam would be a good indicator. In other words, if there were 16,000 people dead in Vietnam, it's spreading. We got a problem. But the facts were that no one was dead in Vietnam. So that's another type of indicator that it's not spreading. So Laura and I had been talking about that, but I sent this to her. And let me read to you what I sent in the message. I said, I know it sounds crazy, but I think this might explain hospitals at Javits and Moscone better than a respiratory infection. POTUS declares emergency in all 50 states for first time in history. NORAD in charge? April 26th through 27th, peak risk. Now we are in the clear. And there was a download link for Laura, and I'm going to show you what I sent her. A 575 megabyte file, and I have that file open right now. I'm going to show it to you. So she downloads this. We get on Skype together, and we look at this together. I'll show you the video in a second, but effectively what this video shows is the trajectories for a number of asteroids. And in the upper left-hand corner, you see a whole bunch of them, and the Earth is in the middle. The Earth is this little square thing here in the middle. Blue thing in the middle. And then on the lower right-hand side, you see a whole bunch of those asteroids a whole lot closer to Earth. And so effectively what was happening in this animation thing is a whole bunch of asteroids were converging with Earth. And the date of the convergence happened to be the day that I was talking to Laura Ingraham. All right, so I didn't realize it was, in that moment that we were at the greatest risk. And so I have found further evidence since this point in time. So in other words, 5 years ago, this was all I had, was this simulation animation of these asteroids, their trajectories, which are called ephemera, the data from observations, we call that ephemera. So each one of the asteroids has a trajectory, and apparently they were all converging with Earth. So let me play the video footage for you of this, and this is what Laura and I were doing together on Skype. So let me pull that up for you now. So this is the animation, and what I'm showing you here is proprietary in that I did it, meaning I went to the system, I selected all these asteroids and said, show me what's going on. And then you can kind of rotate the animation and move it around a bit, so to speak. And so that's what I did. So what you're seeing is something that I did personally Sort of like I'm driving the mouse. I'm flying the simulation, so to speak. And the simulation will show you all on the left-hand side, all these things in green, like 2020 HN3 and 2020 HO5 and 2020 HE6. Each one of these is an asteroid. So each one of these is a white dot that you see in this animation. And then down on the bottom, there's a series of dates. And kind of the key date period is April 26, 27, 28, 29. So in that 3-4 day period, it actually turns out to be April 28th and 29th. All these asteroids appear to be converging with Earth. And I had just did this, hours earlier, and send Laura a message and say, hey, we got to talk. You got to see this. And she's like, what? And I said, I got to send it to you with WeTransfer. All right, so this is it. This is what I showed Laura 5 years ago today. So we're on Skype. It was early in the morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 years ago. I forget if it was a Saturday or Sunday. She calls one of her sons over and says, hey, come look at this with mommy. And we're on Skype watching this together. And she says to me, what is this? And I explain to her what you guys are looking at now. And she's dumbfounded. Kind of like, what? Like she's flabbergasted. She had no idea. And what you're seeing, the blue dot is Earth. And what I'm doing is I'm changing the dates and then hitting play and saying, okay, now take us in time right to April 28th. And you'll see the blue dot all of a sudden starts getting converged upon by a fair number of these objects, and it's coming up. So right now the date is March 17th, March 20th, March 27th, April 2nd, April 8th, and on April 28th, they converge. Now here I've stopped it at April 26th. Depending on the date, some are closer, others are closer, right? So on the 27th, there's a couple more that are closer, but this was April 26th, 27, 28. You got a whole bunch of asteroids converging with Earth at the same time. I ran the model backwards to see anything like this ever happened before? No. So you can run this thing backwards, or you can set the date to, the earliest possible date, like, 1850 or something, and then hit play and play it at a very high speed to see, do they ever converge? No. So this is a really rare event. And what I believe happened was that on March the 10th, they brought a simulation like this to the president and said, Mr. President, we've got a heck of a problem here, sir. Not sure what to tell you, but this is no joke. And if they showed this to the president on March the 10th of 2020, might that explain the WHO declaring a global pandemic on March the 11th, given that there weren't 10 dead in Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, New York, Vietnam, California? The only place that they had more than 100 people dead on March the 11th was Wuhan. And the people in Wuhan were also infected with bird flu. So that's like a whole nother can of worms. But the declaration of a global pandemic, if there's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong, and there's not 10 people dead in Beijing or Shanghai, shouldn't we wait till there's like 500 dead? I mean, give a reasonable number, 1,000 people dead? So was the declaration of a global pandemic on March the 11th a direct result of them showing the president this? And is that a possibility? Let's take a look at this clip of what may have happened on March the 10th had there been a meeting with NORAD, NASA, and the President of the United States with this data, does that explain the lockdowns? Does this explain putting the planes away into storage better than a respiratory infection? Right? Remember, we had the Great Barrington Declaration. Jay Bhattacharya, Martin Kulldorff, this other guy whose name I forget, authored this thing and said lockdowns. What you don't do that with healthy people. You do that, if you want to put the sick people and sequester them, that you can do that. But this doesn't make any sense. And the reason it didn't make any sense was it's not what it was for. The lockdowns weren't for a respiratory infection. They were for this. So let's take a look at this video clip together, and I think you'll enjoy this. So the question here is, if they show the president this type of simulation on March the 10th, let's say it's the evening of March the 10th, they go into the situation room and say, sir, we don't know what to tell you. This is physics, it's math, it's gravity. April 28th and 29th, sir, we've got a heck of a problem. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that NASA was addressing this publicly on YouTube and publishing videos. Sometimes you think it's such a big cover-up, you don't look in the most obvious place. And I didn't. Neither did any of my audience until just recently. And so recently, somebody points this out to me, or I forget, and we see this video from NASA talking about April 28th, April 29th, a close approach, a neo-close approach. So does this explain what happened between March 10th and March the 11th? I think it does. And I think it explains the field hospitals a whole lot better than a respiratory infection that's not yet killed 10 people in Hong Kong or Shanghai. So is this the type of thing the CIA would cover up? Is this the type of thing they would be chartered with covering up? Potentially. Hypothetically speaking. I think so. All right, so we've got potentially an extinction level event on April 28th, April 29th. I share the evidence with Laura Ingraham. Okay, so she has the evidence of all this stuff, and she has all the evidence of what's going on with COVID, influenza, the data from the CDC. So she has this. She has all this information, and we're emailing back and forth. She's sending me stuff. She's, responding, telling me this, telling me that. So this is all happening. Now, at the same time, there's a whole bunch of other things that are happening. Jason and I end up doing a whole bunch of other things. We go out to the dam. We start exploring who's using up all this water that was in the lake, and then the lake was dry, and it turns out that it was the Saudis were growing alfalfa or something to ship back to Saudi Arabia for their Arabian horses and their cattle, because they can't really grow the stuff, I guess, in Saudi Arabia, or it's cheaper to do it here. And recently, that was kind of resolved. Like, they put an end to this. And, it's nice to be able to participate. So a lot of stuff was happening at that time. What I wanted to show you guys, was this. So I kind of just stumbled upon this. This was in one of the presentations that Jason and I did together 2 years ago. And this is a DARPA document, Removing the Viral Threat, 2 months to stop Pandemic X from taking hold. DARPA aims to develop an integrated end-to-end platform that uses nucleic acid sequences to halt the spread of viral infections in 60 days or less. And this is from 2017. This, of course, is the raccoon dog. And, what better way to get you to not think about chickens? This whole notion of the field hospitals being deployed when there's not 10 dead in Hong Kong. Why would you need field hospitals? If Hong Kong was deploying field hospitals and Shanghai was deploying field hospitals and Vietnam was deploying field hospitals because they were overwhelmed, then it might make some sense. But I'm looking at the systems and it says, no, there's not 10 people dead in Shanghai. Well, why would you need a field hospital then? And the field hospitals are not just in the United States. They're all over the world. Field hospitals built around the globe as coronavirus pandemic spreads. This is April 4th of 2020. There's still not 10 dead in Shanghai. There's still not 10 dead in Hong Kong. No one's dead in Vietnam. And we're building field hospitals? You sure they're for a respiratory infection? No. Lee County, Florida. National Guard preparing a field hospital. Thursday, April the 9th of 2020. So what happens is they start taking this stuff seriously. Rapid deployment of National Guard alternative healthcare facility with isolation unit capabilities in response to COVID-19. Okay. So in response to is kind of the footnote. National Guard alternative healthcare facility with isolation capabilities. All right. So this deployment of the field hospitals, right? Why you got an ICU? Javits Center Hospital to close after treating 1,100 patients. Get the hell out of here. If they treated anybody, they were in uniform. Okay? So if you're a National Guard member, like Pete Hegseth used to be, and you got sick, you might have been treated there if you're active duty. But I don't think they treated 1,100 people. I think that's a bit of a stretch. What we do know is that the Javits Center closed, and this was published May 2nd. The 2,500 bed federal hospital, the Jacob Javits Center in Manhattan, which was quickly mobilized in an effort to greatly expand New York's hospital capacity, was set to close Friday after transferring its last patients back to local hospitals. I'm not sure they had any patients. So they stood for 10 days. They were decommissioned May 1st. Okay, this story is May 8th. Michigan's first field hospital is no longer accepting patients. It was never accepting patients. Less than a month after opening. They opened April 20th. They were decommissioned May 1st. Opened April 10th. Admitted its first patient that Sunday. Again, it has to be National Guard. It has to be somebody in uniform. May 1st, they confirmed the field hospital would accept no more transfers. The final patient was discharged on Wednesday. So this is when they decommissioned these hospitals. The ship, the Comfort, this hospital ship, left New York on April 30th. Okay, so the convergence event that we just looked at was April 28th. The Comfort left New York 2 days later. Like, okay, we're done. The risk is over. Get the ship out of there. Get it out. Get it out. They wasted no time. So, again, this is a pretty awkward situation, I think, because we have so much data. And, the data tells us that these asteroids were real. They were here. We have the dates. We see how many of them there were. We see how close they came. We know how big they were. And we know that the government has spent a fair amount of time, lying to the public. What are you supposed to do about that, right? So, April 28th, I shared all this information with Laura Ingraham, Fox News, right? She's got the video. She's got the animation. She's one of the few people that has it. She has it. Jason Goodman has it. I think that's, the people who bought my little USB my patrons. Like 10 patrons got a USB 2 years ago or something. They have it, but there's relatively few people that have that footage. And the fact that Fox opted not to do anything about it, I find somewhat odd, particularly in the face of this video from NASA. So let's take a look at this NASA video, because, again, this kind of makes it somewhat official. Let's take a look. No, that's pretty big right there. So first of all, they're acknowledging the April 28th, 2020 date, but they're only telling you about one asteroid. They're telling you about a really big one that's passing 4 million miles away, and they're not telling you about the 40 others that we just looked at. This one, the big one, was 1998 OR2, and it's passing 4 million miles away, and it's big. But that's not really the problem. The problem is the 30 or 40 others and any others that are kind of behind them that we don't see that were converging April 28th. So they're acknowledging one asteroid and ignoring the 40 others and assuming if they don't tell you about them, you won't know about them. And without that animation that I did, you probably wouldn't know about them, right? So they're acknowledging it, but then at the same time, right here, they're telling you the last time there was an Armageddon warning was last month, meaning March of 2020. So in March of 2020 and April of 2020, there were 2 Armageddon warnings, according the last time there was an Armageddon warning. I don't know if you guys have an app on your phone for Armageddon warnings. I don't. I haven't been getting my Armageddon warnings. It appears that Anderson Cooper isn't getting the Armageddon warnings either. Nor is David Muir. Nor is Sean Hannity. Why is no one getting these Armageddon warnings? Who is NASA sending them to? There you go. So that's it. Armageddon's next date with Earth and its creatures is April 29th of 2020. All right, so then we have this whole session with NASA, which I've played before, which is the Asteroid Illusion episode, which you can find on YouTube, and I publish it rather regularly on X, which is the people from NASA talking about 1998 OR2, the 4 million mile away asteroid, and ignoring all the others. And so, again, they're acknowledging the date, and they're acknowledging one of the 30 or 40 asteroids we see converging. But they're not acknowledging what happened in Akure, Nigeria, just 4 weeks earlier, on March the 28th. So the deployment of the field hospitals really gets ratcheted into high gear after the impact in Akure, which is March 28th. And on April 28th, I didn't yet know about Akure. So when I shared all this stuff with Laura Ingraham, I didn't know we had had an impact yet. The news of what had happened in Akure had not yet reached me. And when it did, I shared that with Laura as well. So let's finish with this, and then we'll take a look at how did they ignore Akure, Nigeria? So let's look at this. Let's just finish with this. All right, so there's another humdinger of a point that these guys admit to. An asteroid was expected to hit the Earth September 9th, 2019. Did you guys remember getting a warning from Anderson Cooper, David Muir, Sean Hannity? Anybody? Rachel Maddow? An asteroid was supposed to hit the Earth on September 9th, 2019, and what happened? What happened? They lost it. They lost track of it. So as they get to September 18th, they're like, where'd it go? So that's comforting. So when they predict a particular asteroid is safe and is going to miss us, even though it's closer than our satellites, how much credibility do these guys have if they can't even keep track of them? You know, I'm not saying this flippantly. I'm saying it pointedly. So if you guys are losing track of them entirely and it's just like gone, and yet you want us to believe that you've got the trajectories just absolutely figured out for Apophis in less than 4 years. I'm sorry, you kind of blew your own credibility, gang. So what it begs the question then of why did we lock everything down? Why did we put the planes away? We put airplanes away all over the world. Why would we do that? Why would we put planes away all over the world? Again, there's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong. And we're going to ground the fleet? There's not 10 people dead in Shanghai. There's not 10 people dead in Vietnam. And we're locking everything down and they don't want you on the roads unless you're what did they call it? You're like a mandatory worker or a special worker. It's like if you're a nurse, a doctor or something, you're allowed to be on the roads. They didn't want anybody on the roads. And there's not 10 people dead in Shanghai or Hong Kong. And I'm kind of dumbfounded by this. And what I call this the Akure paradox, which is why did we lock everybody down and then keep the story of the first meteor impact in 1100 years, the first one witnessed by people the morning after since the birth of Christ. The one that was 1100 years ago was in Whitecourt, Canada. There's nothing but elk up there. I mean, it was in the middle of the woods. And the one before that, 3,500 years ago, was in Kali, Estonia, similarly in the middle of the woods. The one that happens in Akure is in a village, and 1,000 homes and buildings lose their roofs. Windows are blown out. 1,000 buildings. And it doesn't make the news. National Geographic doesn't send a team there. Christian Amanpour doesn't say, reporting from Akure, Nigeria, the first meteor impact since the birth of Jesus Christ that's been witnessed by people. How do you not talk about that? That's the Akure paradox. it appears that the government simply doesn't want the public to know certain things, and whether it's about meteor impacts or pending meteor impacts or unidentified aerial phenomenon or terrorist attacks in Las Vegas, there are secrets that the government keeps and continues to keep, it seems, despite the administration. Doesn't seem to matter whether it's a Democratic president, Republican president, whether it's this guy, that guy. It doesn't seem to matter. It seems that the secrets that are being kept are important to someone somewhere. I'm not sure why. To the extent that the White House has published this new website talking about the lab leak hypothesis, basically throwing Dr. Fauci under the bus. We're going to go through this together with my patrons right now. I'm John Cullen.
Every time you come around, you know I can't say no. Every time the sun goes down, I let you take control. I can feel the paradise before my world implodes. And tonight had something wonderful. My bad habits lead to late nights, sitting alone, conversations with a stranger I barely know, swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. My bad habits lead to white eyes stare into space, and I know I lose control of the things that I say. Yeah, I was looking for a way out, now I can't escape. Nothing happens after two. It's true, it's true. My bad habits lead to you. My bad habits lead to you. My bad habits lead to you. Every pure intention ends when the good times start. Falling over everything to reach the first time spark. It started on the neon lights and then it all got dark. I only know how to go too far. My bad habits lead to late nights, sitting alone, conversations with a stranger I barely know, swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. My bad habits lead to white eyes staring into space, and I know I lose control of the things that I say. Yeah, I was looking for a way out, now I can't escape. Nothing happens after two. It's true, it's true. My bad habits lead to you. My bad habits lead to you. We took the long way round and burned till the fun ran out. Now my bad habits lead to late nights, sitting alone, conversations with a stranger I barely know, swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left